Get started. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Entrepreneurs International Network. My name is Becky Askerland, and I am the organizer here for EIN. We are each week we bring speakers that we know and collaborate with to bring a valuable message or training here in this space. Today we have a very special guest with us, Sam Liebowitz. And today he is going to teach us the step-by-step strategies for monetizing your podcast. Sam is the conscience consultant. He is a facilitator, a mentor, a speaker, healer, serial entrepreneur, host of the top-rated radio show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, and is a four-time best-selling author and author of the #1 empowerment book, Everyday Awakening. He is also an executive producer of TalkRadio.nyc and has been in business since 1993. Sam has lectured in several venues in New York City, including being featured speaker at TEDx Upper West Side in 2026. Not even 2026 yet. So in 2016, my
That would be a real
apology.
feat, a time
It's
traveler. I
it's just
my TEDx in the future.
he is phenomenal. Let me go ahead and bring Sam on stage here. Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for
Um,
joining us today. We're honored to have you.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat with your people. Yeah, I just wanted to get a sense. Brian, if you can put in the chat, and Daniel, maybe you can raise your hand when I ask, or just audio. I'm just curious. Would you guys like to hear more about like what does it take to start a podcast? What strategies? What do you got to keep in mind? Or are you more interested in how do you monetize a podcast and how do you actually make money from the podcast? Which would you prefer? Um, Daniel, money or strategy? Can't hear you. That's okay. Okay, strategy. How do you get momentum? Says Brian. Okay, so why don't we just talk about like the basics around, why you should do a podcast? What is it all about? Um, and just kind of start off with some of the basic things. So lots of people ask me like what's really the secret to doing a good podcast, and a lot of people think it's about getting great guests, making sure you have the right equipment, that making sure you have a good topic, and having a big mailing list, promoting it. And it's so interesting. We always think about all these external things, but the truth is, the biggest key to having a successful podcast is the one element that people never really think about, and that's consistency. It's once you start it, you want to stay with it. Because people look around now and they go like, oh my God, there's millions and millions and millions of podcasts. But what they don't realize is less than 19% of the podcasts listed um, actually, oh, thank you, Daniel, are actually active. And of the 19% that are active, I think less than 17% of them have more than 8 episodes. So really the key to having a successful podcast is consistency. It's starting it and keeping it going, and not just for a couple of weeks, not just for a month. I'm like, oh, I'll try it for a month and see if I have any results from it. No, that's not going to show. 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, you're not going to really get the benefit from it. The benefit from it really comes in what Seth Godin calls the long tail of marketing. It's about the fact that your stuff is out there and has been out there for a long time. Now, the thing is, most people look at podcasting as an expense. It's an expense of money, it's an expense of time. But actually, I look at things very differently. To me, doing an online show is an investment of time. And the same way whether we invest in the stock market or gold or Bitcoin or whatever it is, our investments appreciate over time. And the reason why I say doing a podcast is an investment of time is because you're creating content on a regular basis. And I'll get into what regular basis should be, but you're creating content that's recorded. And I'm going to talk about also the medium and audio versus video and that stuff. But it's recorded. So what does that mean? Well, once you have recorded content, regardless of the form, over time, you can take all those recordings, repurpose, reuse, and republish them in a million different ways, which now with AI is like easier than you can imagine. So you're actually investing your time in creating something once that you can then reuse over and over and over again in the future. I mean, I look back over some of my old shows and I'm even thinking of taking, and I haven't done it yet, I admit, but I'm definitely serious about it, taking old transcripts from shows that I did 10, 12, 13 years ago, taking those transcripts, putting them together and turning it into a book. And so there's many ways in which you can repurpose and reuse your show. So to me, it's always an investment. It's not an expense. Now, I talk about doing things on a consistent basis. So people always ask me, well, what's the best frequency that I could do my show? I should do my show. And it's really interesting when I tell people this answer, how much resistance comes up and how much they people want to bargain with me and stuff. But I'm like, look, I've been doing this over 15 years. This is the consistency it takes to build an audience, and that's weekly. And there's a very specific reason why weekly is the best choice. Weekly or more frequent, I'm going to say. Minimum weekly. You know, some people want to do it 5 days a week. Great, more power to you. Minimum is weekly. You know, for most of us who our main business is not podcasting, weekly is a good pace. And that is because from the time that we are little children, we're always expecting our favorite program to come out with a new episode at a certain time every week. Saturday morning cartoon, Sunday night Disney show, or Tuesday evening 8 p.m., you know, whatever it is, we all have that kind of expectation built into us from the time we're very young. You know, I don't know, maybe nowadays, the kids growing up today, they used to everything on demand, so maybe not. But when adults were young, we did. And so because of that, listeners to a podcast or an online show, they kind of expect, like, they just want to know what day of the week and what time does it come out each week. And so if you're doing a show every other week, once a month, or less frequently, you've lost your audience because now they have to think about, oh, is the new episode dropping this week or next week? Or is it this month, or did I miss it this month or next month? And as soon as people have to think about whether there's a new show coming on, you've lost them. They're gone. Forget it. They're on to somebody else who is doing it weekly, and they're just going to stay there. So I've found over the last 15 years, and I've had people do it every other week. I've had people do it, you know, less than every week. And inevitably, it took forever for them to build their audience. And what happened? After 3, 4, 5 months, they quit. They stopped. They go, oh, I'm not getting any listeners. And I'm like, I didn't listen to me, so I'm not surprised you didn't get many listeners. So weekly is the minimum. Um, and And today, and in the last few years, things have also, podcasting has undergone a lot of changes. And what we've seen happen and what the statistics show today is video podcasts are far and away get many more listeners than just straight audio podcasts. Not that people are not listening to audio podcasts. They absolutely are. We get lots of listeners to the audio podcast version of our shows. But the growth in video viewership has grown exponentially over the last 2, 3, 4 years and continues to grow faster than the audio podcast side. So what we do at the network, we do both. We stream out audio live, we stream out video live, we record them both, and then the audio gets turned into the podcast. And I also want to say something, because the term podcast is misused a million times a day. Because people refer to all kinds of things as a podcast, but a podcast is actually something very specific. Podcast is a pre-recorded audio file which is distributed through an RSS feed. Don't worry about what that is. Through the podcasting platforms such as Apple or Spotify or Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon. And there used to be more, but several of the big names closed down. So when someone refers to a podcast, they often don't realize what they're referring to, and they'll call a live stream a podcast. A live stream and a podcast are actually two very different things. Now, I am using the term podcast a little more generically, but I just want everyone who's listening to this to know, like what we do at TalkRadio.nyc, I actually don't call it podcasting. We're internet radio. And so we do our shows live. We stream out both audio and video live. We record it while it's live. And then the audio file that we record is then put out as the podcast after the fact, because a podcast is not a live show. So if someone's doing a live show and calling it a podcast, they are doing themselves a tremendous disservice. So, but video is very important. And even though a video show is not necessarily a podcast, it is very, very, very helpful to have a video component to your podcast. That doing them both actually gives you a much stronger opportunity, again, to repurpose, to get more presence, to be more noticed. And it gives you extra material that you can take and do certain things which now people expect. And in the age of AI, it makes it so much easier. And one of the most important things you can do, and this is a big tip, you want to write it down, that after you create a show, long format, we do 1 hour shows. Some people do 20-minute shows. Some people do 30-minute shows. At my station, we do 1 hour weekly shows. And there's a specific reason for that. But once you have the full-length show, you want to create very short clips from it. You want to create 30-second to 1-minute clips, and you want to post those on YouTube, on social media, with a link back to the full episode. Because these days on TikTok, on YouTube, on all these different platforms, people watch 30 seconds and then flip, and then flip, and then flip. But when they watch something, and I've seen my wife do this, like she found this comedian, Jessica Kirshen, that she was watching all her shorts and she loved it. And then she found one link to the longer form and went to her channel, and she just loves this comedian. She's hysterical. Not everyone's cup of tea, but my wife really loves her. So by putting out these shorts, and YouTube calls them shorts, Instagram, they're reels, people like watching these short little bits. But after they've watched enough of these shorts, these little 30-second clips, they may want to go back and see the full episode and like, oh, that was really good. Wait, I want to know what else they talked about on that show. So having these shorts made and then linking those back to the long form is one of the best strategies to pick up many, many listeners after the fact. And to but a lot of people say, well, how do I know what thing I should use to clip out the 30 seconds? Well, there's several wonderful apps that can do that for you automatically, such as Opus Clip or Memento. But what we do, we actually do a much simpler version. You can take your transcript, bring it into ChatGPT or Marketer or whatever AI you use, and ask your AI what would make a really good 30-second to 1-minute clip from this transcript of my show. Give me 5 different options. It'll give you 5 choices for clips with the time codes, and then you can pick which ones you like the best, and then those are the ones that you cut out and use. So some of these things, which you used to take hours and hours to do, with AI, it's so much faster to do. And now that you've got all this material, you can repurpose and reuse it. Now, a couple of warnings for people out there. To make a successful show, number one, you want to keep in mind and very clearly define who is your audience, right? We're not all going to be Joe Rogan. Nobody else in the world is going to be Joe Rogan. The only Joe Rogan out there is Joe Rogan. The good news is we don't have to be. We just have to appeal to a very specific niche, a very specific target audience who we love them and they love us. Like they can relate to our experience, our background, they like our voice, whatever it is, you want to pick a very specific audience. And then everything you do in your show should be of interest to your audience. So if you're thinking of starting a show with a friend and talking about what you did last week, the only people who are going to listen to that are your mothers. Okay. That is what we call a blabbercast because it's 2 people just blabbing with each other. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to listen to that. But let's just say you have a very specific specialty. For instance, I have a gentleman on my network who does sales coaching for enterprise level software sales. So it's kind of a technical sales kind of thing, but that's who he serves. That's what he talks about. And the people love it. And he doesn't have necessarily a huge, wide mass audience, but the people who are tuning into his show are the exact people he wants to serve. And hopefully, those are the people who could turn into clients. I have other shows on my network that talk about totally different things. Like I got a show all about nonprofits that highlights local nonprofits in the New York, Long Island, New Jersey area. That appeals to a totally different audience. And there are other shows on things like health and wellness, personal and spiritual development. Like every show is going to have its own niche. You have to figure out who is the niche you want to serve, that the topics you want to talk about are the topics they're going to want to consume, are going to serve them in some way. Our brand is to uplift, educate, and empower. You want to empower your audience, you want to entertain your audience. Some of the most successful shows have been the most fun shows on my network. Now, there's also not one reason to start a podcast. There are many, many different reasons to start a podcast. But if you're starting a podcast with the goal of, oh, I want to get 1 million listeners, I want everybody to know me, I'd recommend you not bother, because then it's all about you and it's not about your audience, and that podcast is not going to go anywhere. So some examples of shows that actually did quite well on my network over the years. The first one, who's the most successful podcast, Tony came to me, Tony Martignetti, who I knew from BNI, and he was a nonprofit consultant. and he would help people, nonprofits, very specifically with just planned giving and charity registration. But he didn't do his show to get more business. He wanted to do a show to serve the nonprofit community because he saw, and very specifically for small and mid-sized nonprofits, because he had been in the industry long enough that he could see how the large nonprofits had the big budgets and they could afford to hire all the consultants and the great thought leaders and get the latest information, but the small and mid-sized nonprofits were struggling. So he wanted to do his show to give those small and mid-sized nonprofits access to the information that the large nonprofits had. So what happened? He started inviting all of these thought leaders on his show from the nonprofit space. All kinds of people who, I didn't know who they were, but if you worked in nonprofits, you would know who they were. And after a couple of years, word got around about his show. Nonprofit professionals from small and mid-sized nonprofits started listening to his show. He eventually became the #1 nonprofit podcast on iTunes. And not only was he #1, but he got mentioned in nonprofit industry blogs as a thought leader to follow. And the quote I love best was one nonprofit industry blog said, and when they named their top 10 nonprofit thought leaders, they named Tony and they said, and if you like the other 9 thought leaders that we've put on our list, you're going to love Tony's show because he's interviewed all of these other 9 thought leaders. So by bringing on other thought leaders in the industry, he served the industry. He got known as a thought leader, became the #1 nonprofit podcast, was able to monetize it. I think he had up to 5 sponsors at one time. We worked together for over 10 years. He's since retired, unfortunately, but became really successful at what he did. But he became successful because he always kept in mind was what he was talking about serving his community, and his community was small and mid-sized nonprofits. And what did he do to get momentum and built it up? Well, once he started his show, he would put the fact that he was host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio on his business card. He would go to all kinds of nonprofit conferences and get booths and let people know about his show. He would even, and this was a great strategy, he would even contact some of the organizers of the conferences he went to and said, hey, if you want to collaborate, I will help to promote your conference if you give me a booth where I can interview the speakers at your conference. And he would cut these deals with these conference organizers where he would create a schedule, and like all throughout the conference, he'd have people come to his booth and he'd be interviewing them, recording interviews with them, which he'd then play on his show throughout the year. And he would always say, and this is Tony Martignetti live from the such and such nonprofit conference. So even months after the conference is over, he's still mentioning the conference, which drove more people to the conference the following year. And he got great speakers to interview. The conference loved it. He got the cachet of being a media sponsor of the conference. He got a free booth, and the organizers loved it because he was adding value to the presence and the awareness of the conference. So that was really smart. Another very successful host that I had on my network, but again, not successful because he got 1 million listeners. This guy, Michael, came up to me, who also I knew from business networking. And I knew Michael as the web and SEO guy. Like that was his business. That's what I knew he did. And he said, Sam, I want to do a show on your network. And I'm like, great, Michael, what do you want to do a show on? Technology, I'm thinking. And he says, no, I'm actually a comic book artist. And I used to work in the industry 14 years ago before I got married. But then when I got married and had a kid, I had to make real money. So I started my tech company. But I want to revive my comic book side of my business. And I want to reconnect with all these industry professionals so that maybe eventually I can pitch them with some ideas, with all the DC movie shows and TV shows and the Marvel movies coming out. I feel it's a really good time. So I said, great. So he started doing his show. And he started doing a show talking about what's happening in the comic book industry, what are the movies coming out, what's happening on the TV shows. But he realized he needed some help. So he invited on to co-host with him a friend of his who he used to have so much fun with when he worked at Wizard Magazine, which was the main at the time publication for the comic book industry, who had a completely different personality from his. And this is also a key. If you're looking for a co-host to do your show with, get somebody who's completely different from you, not someone who's the same. Because two people agreeing on everything is pretty boring. But when you get two people who can tease each other, make fun of each other, who can argue with each other, that can be really interesting. So he brought on his friend Hassan, and the two of them did such a fun, funny show. They brought on all different comic book artists, people who worked in the industry, voice actors, different kinds of folks. And then eventually he was able to bring on some production companies. And because he got the person from the production company to talk about the projects they were working on, they really liked Michael. So then Michael would follow up afterwards and eventually say, hey, I'm an artist myself. I have some idea for projects. And he pitched a couple of different ideas and he actually started to get work. Well, what happened was because he did such a fun show and because he got some real comic book industry insiders, word about his show got around. And of course, he went to the big Comic Cons. He went to the San Diego Comic Con, the New York Comic Con. Word got around. More and more people started listening to his show. Eventually, he got approached by an entertainment company who loved what he did so much, they wanted to buy his podcast. So he ended up selling his podcast to this entertainment company. They changed the name to a new name under this company. And he was happy as anything because now he was getting paid to do something he loved every week. And a few years, and of course, when he did that, he went off on his own. He stopped working with him. But just a couple of years ago, it had been a few years since we had worked together. I saw a post he did on Facebook saying he was so happy and thrilled that he was now the creative director of that entertainment company. So not only had he gotten paid to do his podcast, he was able to sell his podcast. He got more comic book projects. He built up the whole comic book side to the point where it was more than 50% of his business, which was his goal. But then he became the creative director and got his dream job at an entertainment industry, which was a goal that was completely like not even one he thought of when he started doing his show. So sometimes when you start a show, you have one intention, but these sort of unexpected benefits happen that we never even imagined could happen. And the benefit that comes to us in so many different ways. Again, did this happen in a month or two? No. He had been doing his show with me for 3 years. And when he left, I think it was like another 3 years before he became that creative director. But you tell me, was it worth it for him to do his show for 6 years to eventually become the creative director of that show? For me, I think it was worth it. Oh, and Daniel has a question. Good question. Is it important to trademark the podcast name? It is helpful. I actually used to have an IP attorney do a show on my network, and he would talk about the importance of it. Um, but it depends, like, if your intention is to really build a big brand around that name. First thing you want to do is make sure there are no other podcasts with the same name. You want to make sure the URL is available. You want to grab the URL. And And the real question is, are you building a business around that name? My individual show on the network is called the Conscious Consultant Hour. Why did I pick that name? Because theconsciousconsultant.com is my website, and I've been known as the Conscious Consultant for probably 20 years now. Have I trademarked it? No. But I'm not particularly worried about it because anytime I want to, I can prove that I've been using this for years. And it's obvious. If you search for the Conscious Consultant, you will find me as the Conscious Consultant on just about any platform online. My website will come up because I've just been around so long. So it's helpful. I wouldn't worry about that until you actually get it started and off the ground and going somewhere and getting momentum. So it's something to consider as you're growing. And if you feel you're doing well and it's something you really want to build around, like that's when you want to look at it. I wouldn't do it like first thing out of the gates. Also, I didn't get answer Daniel's other question, which is how to use a podcast to promote sales for businesses. So here's the thing, you don't. Podcasting is about marketing and branding. It's not about sales. However, there are some strategies you can use to help increase the sales of your business. So the first thing is it always depends on the business. But in general, sales for a business is usually a funnel of some kind. It's like first there's awareness. People have to know you exist, which is how a podcast helps. Then they have to like you. Then they have to trust you. Then you make an offer that they're going to buy into. And so what you do is you offer great value through your podcast without asking for anything of your audience at first. You create raving fans who love you, love your personality, love the way you talk about it, and love the information you're putting out there. Then you give them a free gift. Hey, go to my website, download my free report or my meditation or whatever, and get them in your mailing list. And then once you have your mailing list, well, you're emailing them every week to let them know about your latest episode on your show. And then after they've been on your list for a period of time, at least 12 weeks, if not 6 months, then you can gently start saying, hey, I had this great experience with this product or this service, or you get a customer testimonial, and then you start promoting things a little bit. But you promote it only as how it solved a certain problem or solution, not the features and benefits. It's always about the listener and how can this help them. But another sneaky way people don't often think about that they can use their podcast to build their business is not by selling to the audience. What you actually want to do is identify key strategic alliances, potential strategic alliances for your business. People who do something different from what you do, complementary to what you do, but for the exact same people that you're trying to reach. You approach them and say, hey, I love what your work is all about. I love what you do. I'd love for you to come and talk about what you do on my show. And especially if they're doing something different, but for the same audience, you interview them about their work. Your audience is going to love it because it's the same audience as their audience. Now, what have you done? You've just made a deposit in the emotional bank account. That person really likes you. You've also had a chance to spend a half hour or an hour with them. You probably talked to them beforehand, setting it up. You follow up afterwards. You've now got a real sense. Is this person in alignment with your brand? Do you like them? Do you trust them? Do you feel you could develop a good working relationship with them? So after they've come on your show, then you have a follow-up call with them and you say to them, hey, I really loved our interview. I'm wondering if there's a way for us to work together since we do something different, but for the same audience. And then they're more than likely going to be open to the conversation because you've done something for them without asking for anything in return. And they feel good about you. And they're like, yeah, Daniel's a nice guy. I liked him. We had a great interview. And so then you can get them to expose you to their audience, which is the audience you want to be exposed to. And you're much more likely to get business from their clients. But it's because you developed the relationship with that key center of influence, that strategic alliance, but you did it by giving them something ahead of time without asking for anything in return. To me, that is the smartest way to use your podcast to build your business. It's not about selling to your audience. It's actually about finding ways to work with the people you bring on an interview that they can help you build your business. And actually, Tony used it in a very interesting way for his nonprofit show. What Tony used to do is he had a handful of what he called reoccurring co-hosts. So he had a few people who did different aspects for nonprofits. One woman did social media. A gentleman was a lawyer. Another woman was a prospect researcher. Um, who was the other one? The other one was a technology expert. And and so he would have them come on once a month for half of the show, not even for the whole show, for half the show to talk about something around, if it was the legal guy, around board governance or legal aspects, or maybe it was the person who was an expert on event planning and events, how to create a better event for your nonprofit. For another one, it was how to do prospect research around something. Another one on social media. And so he'd have these reoccurring guests come on who he built this relationship with. They'd come back on, 6, 7, 8 times a year. So he developed a relationship with them. And what would happen is, because Tony would keep interviewing them, everybody thought Tony knew all the stuff. He only did two things: plan giving and charity registration. He would get a phone call. Hey, Tony, can you do a marketing plan for my nonprofit? No, sorry, I don't do that, but let me refer you to someone. Hey, Tony, I need a board plan, for our legal department. Can you do that for my nonprofit? No, sorry, I don't do that, but let me refer you to a lawyer who does. Hey, Tony, I'm trying to come up with a social media plan. Can you help me with that? No, I don't do that, but let me refer you to someone. Hey, Tony, I need help with my big gala that we do once a year. Can you help me with that? No, I don't do that, but let me refer you to someone. So people were contacting him for all these different things. So who do you think he was referring them to? He was referring them to his reoccurring guests who were specialists on those different aspects. And what do you think those guests did in return? Of course, they would refer people to Tony who needed a planned giving consultant or someone to help them with charity registration in the different states, because he had that relationship with them. He gave them great exposure on his show. They loved him for it. They had a fun time with him because he always used to tease them and joke with them. He started referring business to them. So naturally, what's going to happen? Unless the person's a schmuck, they're going to refer business back. That, that, that is the best way to use the show to help build your business. But again, if you have a show, you've been doing it for a while, you can take that content, you can create all kinds of things from it: white papers, lead magnets, online courses, books, whatever you want, whatever calls to you. And listen, I've been talking for like 40 minutes straight. I just want to let you know I really appreciate you staying on the call for this long. I do have a special gift for you if you want. If you want to know like how having a show could really benefit you in your particular situation, I normally charge $250 for a discovery call. But my gift to you is having a discovery call with me. So Becky, when you can't, just post the link, and Yeah, go grab some time on my calendar. I'm happy to answer your questions then. But we still have a little bit of time left. So, Brian, Daniel, if either of you have any questions, please just unmute and tell me your questions, or you can always post it in the chat, okay? Or Becky, maybe you have a question for me. Becky's like, oh no, he called on me.
Yeah. Actually, I did have a thought cross my mind when it was talking about promoting your business.
Mhm.
I know like there are some people out there that will, at the end of their podcast, might mention like, hey, if you're looking for a mentor on this more, I'd be happy to connect with you, and will kind of promote themselves in that way, just at the tail end of our
Sure.
conversation. Do you have any thoughts or feedback on that?
Yeah, I feel that depending on the show and the value that's been given in the show, that can be effective, but many times it's not effective.
Hmm.
What can be more effective is to, whatever the topic is for that particular episode, if in the middle of the show you can tell a story, like maybe the show, let's just say you're an emotional coach, right? You help people with their emotions, and you're doing a show about depression. So maybe in the middle of the show, you tell a story about a client, how you help them get past a depressive episode. And you tell the story and you add in the juicy bits and the flavor to it. And then at the end, you say, and if someone out there has the same challenge, I'd be more than happy to speak with you about it. And you can always contact me, because that way
Okay.
you've engaged the audience by telling them a story. It becomes part of the content of your show, and they're much more likely to listen to it. And then they'll actually hear you saying, hey, reach out to me, and here's how you reach out to me. They're much more likely to do it. But if you save it till the very end and you just kind of put it in there, people have already stopped. 90% of the people have probably already stopped listening, and they're on to something else. So they're much less likely to do it. Um, Another sneaky way that some people have used a show to promote their business is if their business offers a product or a service and the name is different than the podcast name, at the beginning and end of the show, they might say, "Oh, and um, this show is sponsored by XYZ company, and they're a wonderful company who offer this, that, and the other thing." And then towards the end, it's like, and hey, if you enjoy my show and you like listening to the show, please reach out to our sponsor, show them some love, go to the website, tell them you heard about it on my show. And so then it doesn't sound like you're promoting yourself. It sounds like you're supporting your sponsor, but it's actually your business, and it's letting people know, like, hey, go check out the website.
Can I piggyback off of that? So,
Sure.
so with sponsors, I've also noticed like during podcasts, there'll be at least once, if not twice, or the ones I listen to anyways, that will have the brief breaks in the middle of the conversation to promote the sponsor, an ad insert,
Mhm.
or what sort. What's your feedback on that? Is that something you encourage? Does it um, distract or shy away the audience? What's your
I think audiences are pretty used to getting ads served up in the middle.
gotcha?
Um, I wouldn't do it too soon. Like, you first need to build the trust with the audience. So you want to build up your following. You want to do your show for a period of time that your audience is growing. It's at a decent level. You've got, more than just 100 or 2 people listening. You've got, a few thousand people listening to your show, two, 3,000. And then it's okay. Now, some media hosts, like the one we use, have um, ad services where once you qualify, they will insert ads into your show and you'll get paid for it automatically, which is a way to make a little bit of change on your show. I think most people are used to it. I don't see anything wrong with it. On our network, What we do is we do hour-long shows, but we break it up into 4 segments by inserting sort of 3 commercial breaks, but they're commercial breaks for the other shows on the network. They're not for sponsors. They're just a way
Mm.
for us to cross-promote. So if someone's listening to, let's say, the health and wellness show, and they hear a commercial for the executive coaching show, they might be interested in that. And what that does is it gives the host a break from talking and the guest from talking for a minute. You don't, they're not very long. They're short, like 1 minute, 1.5 minute breaks. It gives the host a break. They can collect their thoughts and then they come back and go on with the next thing. And now the show's split up into 4 logical segments. So that's a way of also that you can repurpose it, that then you could chop it up into 4 segments and put it out as 4 individual videos and then put out the complete video. And now you've gotten 5 posts from just one episode.
It's a great point. Before I forget, Daniel and Brian, I did remove so you are able to unmute yourself if you ever want to jump in. But I was going to add the podcasts that I tend to follow the most are the ones that have the video. I feel like I feel like I connect with the host better, like almost on like a personal level in a roundabout way because I'm seeing their emotions, their engagement, especially if they're talking to someone else, you just feel more connected during the podcast. And I have been one that has seen little clips on like Instagram or something, and I'm like, oh, that was such a good nugget. That's right. I forgot that they did another one, and then I go watch the whole hour.
Right.
Something. But go
Hey,
ahead, Daniel.
Daniel, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have two quick questions, and I'll just briefly frame what we do.
Hmm.
The podcast we want to do is in support of a multinational nonprofit that I lead, where we
Okay.
do engineering. We provide engineering and renewable energy projects in developing countries around the world.
Beautiful. Love it.
And yeah, and we figured that the actual number of decision makers is like 500 in the whole world. That is, who can write a check for $1 million. But I'm sure that whether it's the recipients of our services, the villagers, or people that work for agencies, like imagine how many people work for the World Bank versus the number
Mhm.
of decision makers. And all of those people are influential and they're important. And so just with that framework, the question is, is there a merit in your mind of doing podcasts that are like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and are technical, informative, and it's a real job to do anything lengthy with that level of detail. That's the first question: is what if we just do short pieces? And the other is about the video. Is that going to be on you? Would we do that on YouTube? Because we're about to buy podcasting hosting like Podbean, and we can post videos. We can put them on our website. So what's the platform if we're doing video podcast?
Yeah. Yeah. I say YouTube is number one because it's the top search engine out there. Um, Now, absolutely, you can do shorts. You can just do short videos, but you have to set up the time to do them. I'm just a believer of if you're going to do a bunch of short videos, why not do one long one and then just chop it up into the small segments? Because that way you do the setup once, you go through all the stuff, you finish, and then it's just editing and posting. So, I mean, would you rather do,
Well, I did mean
five
the
minutes?
actual present. We would batch our stuff and do long form and edit and chop
Right.
it up, but I meant the finished piece.
Yeah, the finished piece, but why deny somebody the opportunity to watch the whole thing if they want to? Now, also when posting to YouTube, watch time is very important to get to monetization. I mean, you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers, which, takes a little bit of work, but you can get there. But they want 3,000 hours of watch time in order for you to qualify for monetization. And so for what you do, raising money, monetization, that should be an ultimate goal. So I would do both. I would put out all the shorts and I would put out the long form, and I'd make sure all the shorts are linked to the long form video. To me, it's the best of both worlds. And why not? Especially if you got if you've got the whole thing and you're chopping it up. So why not do both? Why not post both? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. Any other questions, Daniel?
You advised YouTube because we would subscribe to a podcast platform like Podbean, where we could post the video, the audio, the transcript, download files, and I think that's
Yeah.
helpful. But if you have
And
anything to comment.
yeah, and from YouTube, you can share the YouTube link on all the social platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, X. But a lot of people go to YouTube looking for stuff. So you always want to have a presence on YouTube because that's where you're most discoverable. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for the questions, Daniel.
And
Brian, do you have any questions? I guess not.
I personally catch myself once I do listen to one on YouTube. I'm like, oh, that's right. There's this other one. I really like that topic. And then I pivot. When I'm active around home and stuff and doing things or on a walk, that seems to be like my go-to. Um,
And also YouTube will also give you the recommended videos on the right-hand side. And so if you
mhm,
have multiple shows around the similar topic, after you've watched one, it'll show you the other ones on the right-hand side.
yeah. And it's sneaky. They pop up on my TV too.
Yeah.
But I was also going to mention too, since you were talking about monetizing with the watch time
Yeah,
and,
the YouTube, yeah.
ideally them watching towards the end, um, Daniel and Brian and others listening to the recording might be interested if you have any suggestions or strategies that keeps the audience engaged to wait towards the end. Um,
Ah,
I don't that might be a
so
whole different
yeah,
conversation,
yeah,
but
that's a whole conversation. But
okay,
the simple answer is tell them something you're going to tell them at the end, but don't tell it to them until the end. Like, oh, I'm going to get to that, but first I'm going to talk about this. And so then their mind is like, oh, what's he going to say? Wait, I want to hear that story. Oh, I'm going to tell you the story about this time that thing happened with my dad, but we'll get to that later. And you wait until the very end to tell that story. That usually keeps people engaged and listening until the very end.
perfect. Well, thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, if Daniel, Brian have any more questions, you're welcome to put them in chat or unmute. Otherwise, we'll get close to wrapping up. But please go ahead and there's the link in the chat. I can go ahead and drop it again here. I highly recommend scheduling that discovery call. You're going to get so much value off of that, even above and beyond what you have today. That's personalized towards you. But Sam, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We host these events weekly on Tuesdays from at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern. And we look forward to having you back. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. Take care, everyone. All the
Bye.
best.